It is Wednesday. I am here with the lovely Alyssa Farah Griffin, who, despite being pregnant, apparently spent the day working on vintage cars.
Sure did. I could give you a tune-up if you need one. A man in the audience said that I looked prison chic, and I was like, thank you. That's what I was going for.
I mean, honest to God, I have no fashion sense whatsoever, which is apparent to anybody who's watching. But I get tickled by the outfits every day.
To be honest, I was going for comfort. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, I don't get it, but I'm comfortable. So
You look beautiful. Sarah looked beautiful today. She looked like a ladybug. I don't really understand it all, but it's great. And we have very talented people working on the show who understand fashion. All right, let's go right into politics and let's talk about the Epstein files. There's a bill that is now on President Trump's desk. You really credit this to the power of the American public. And I actually think that's right, because this is something, and no matter where you are on the dial, this does not happen without hardcore MAGA Republicans demanding it, along with the Democrats and everybody else. This really is important.
I think that I said something like it on air, but if there is one issue that should be bipartisan, it's that we should expose, prosecute, and hold accountable child sex traffickers. Like, that shouldn't be a controversial take. And I think that we have seen so few examples in the Trump years of the country, but the MAGA base with them, just turning against him and being relentless in their pursuit of something, saying, we want to see this information, we want to see justice. And I've followed it because I follow a lot of these very prominent voices on the right who have majorly broken with Trump on this specific issue, and they deserve credit for it, as do the people who have never agreed with Donald Trump, like Congressman Ro Khanna, and they just believe in this issue and the accountability around it. And one of Donald Trump's superpowers, I used to always say, is that he has his finger on the pulse of his base. He so rarely missteps with his own, that like core 25-30% of the Republican Party that's his base. He rarely steps out with them. In this case, he misread it. He went with his classic Roy Cohn, deny, call it a hoax, try to just deflect and change the narrative, and it didn't work.
Well, hypothetically, so here's the thing. Donald Trump has not been credibly accused of any crimes. His appearance in these emails is not saying that he knew anything, did anything else. But the question people have, I think, is, did he react the way you're talking about? Because there was no other move for him. I mean,
that to me is the $1 million question. And I honestly don't know the answer of, is he trying to hide something? What is he trying to hide? But every action he's taken over the last basically 5 months since this has really become a major story looks like somebody who's doing everything to stonewall its release. And there's a lot of different theories of the case. And again, we should say he's not been accused of any wrongdoing. And the wonder is it donors of his? Is it friends of his? Is it the fear of the unknown?
His actions, honestly, have made it seem more and
sketchier,
more
I think, than a lot of people
than 5 or 6 months. I mean, if you'd asked me at the beginning of this season of The View, do we think Donald Trump did something wrong or didn't? I'd be like, I don't think so. He probably is just protecting friends or doesn't want it out there. And maybe that's still the case. But it's
the thing that I kept going back to. I think if you'd asked me also at the beginning of the season, I'd be like, listen, I don't know. The Biden administration had all of this information. They didn't pursue criminal charges. There wasn't even like leaks that there might be some kind of.
Go ahead.
But I was going to say, two things on that. So Julie K. Brown, who's this reporter from the Miami Herald, who's like the Epstein reporter, has rightly pointed out that there were still active investigations going on. So like Ghislaine Maxwell's prosecution was going on then. It would be out of step for DOJ to have been releasing any of this information during it. But I also think that Donald Trump thought that if he got back into office, he'd simply be able to buy time and wait this out. And who's to say? Like, technically, DOJ has to legally comply with the congressional subpoena. That's a fact. Or this discharge petition in the form of a subpoena. There is plenty of evidence of far less nefarious cases where DOJ stonewalls, they turn over certain things, they come up with legal maneuvers to not. But the X factor in all this that I'm not sure Trump was aware of is all the information Epstein's estate has. And then you consider that Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said that Epstein was the best blackmailer of all time. He kept video records, he kept footage. I think there's this fear of the unknown of what could possibly be in this estate. And that's very easy for the government to get. Congress simply just has to subpoena it and the estate has to turn it over. There's not really like a recourse there. If Congress asks for something from like a private trustees of an estate, they have to turn it over.
Well, to your point, I think they did underestimate the public appetite for it, the need for it. And I don't think people are going to stand for stonewalling.
I don't
think
either.
It's going to be very, very
one thing
vocal outrage.
that remains true in American political life when so many rules have been broken and so many norms have been defied is I do think when there's a there, the truth has a way of ultimately getting out. I think whether it's through intrepid reporting, whether it's through the legal system, as long and tiresome as it can often feel, whether it's through whistleblowers, whether it's through survivor accounts, there is a way that we're at least going to get the most horrific aspects of what Epstein was up to and get a lot more information than we have now. That's at least my prediction.
Yeah, it happened a lot faster yesterday than I expected. I didn't expect the Senate to not have to vote.
I've never seen anything like it. Like usually the delay, we used to joke because I was always a House staffer, between like at the middle of the Capitol, between the House and the Senate, it'd be weeks before a bill was taken up on the other side. And that in the same night they were taking it up. Kudos to John Thune because he read this well where he's like, I'm not going to delay for a minute. He's not going to make his members have the baggage of what the House does of trying to stonewall this. Give him the vote and get it off his desk.
Right. Yeah. And now it's going to head to the president's desk and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Got 10 days to do something.
Wow. So the other, before we go on off this, is there any chance he doesn't sign it?
Small, but I think there's a chance. So the way, obviously you know this, but that it works, the president has 10 days to sign a law, excluding Sundays, I believe, but he can either sign it, he can veto it, or he can kind of by default just not sign it.
Is that a pocket veto? Is that the
I know.
thing?
Yeah, exactly. I was looking for that word. My gut is he has to sign it, especially after the Truth Social post this week where he said he was going to support the release. But you never know with him.
I wonder because the comments from the speaker now saying that he was hoping the Senate would make changes.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's starting to lay groundwork for the president to say, they need to make changes to protect people or something else. I'm not going to sign it until I see it.
That's
like
what
that.
it felt like. And if he sent it back to Congress and asked for changes, that would be a way to buy time because that process would take a while.
Right.
So I think that's definitely a possibility. But man, you do not want to be a Republican running for re-election basically a year from 2 weeks ago and say I support the president who would not sign releasing the Epstein files. Like it's not a good position to put Republicans in.
It's crazy.
Well, that they've put themselves into.
The other big conversation we had today involved the president hosting the Saudi Crown Prince at the White House, throwing really all bells and whistles dinner. And Elon Musk was back at the White House. Ronaldo, the soccer star, was there. We talked a little bit about this on the show today. Why does this matter? Why is this significant?
There's kind of two significant moments to this. There's obviously the question that was asked in the Oval Office about the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And that moment was stunning, basically hearing Donald Trump basically say things happen. Like the man was chopped up with a bone saw and carried out of an embassy. Like it's as horrific as it could, like one of the most horrific attacks on the free press.
And kudos to Mary Bruce, ABC News.
ABC's Mary Bruce for asking. So that dismissiveness and almost if you were watching it, you see MBS's face. He looks more uncomfortable by the question. He's kind of wringing his hands, and he actually even gives a slightly more diplomatic answer, kind of realizing
Him actually answering it was pretty astounding.
Yeah, and I give her so much credit because when you stand in front of really truly an evil person like that and to ask that question and to have just the sense to do it so directly, like that is what the free press is about. And I think it was a very important moment. But then separately, listen, Obama hosted the King of Saudi Arabia at the White House when he was in office. I want to say 2010 or 11. He did not do like a, very like ornate dinner and this more like sort of formal reception that he was given. He didn't give him F-35 fighter jets, for example. And this is where I think things actually hurt Trump more with Republicans, is it's this moment where we're all talking about affordability and how he feels out of touch. Doing this lavish dinner with one of the wealthiest leaders on the planet, rolling out the red carpet for him, well, like the rest of the country's like, but we can't put food on our table this Thanksgiving. It once again feels like a let them eat cake moment. I'm really stunned by it. And I'm not an America First Republican. I'm like a McCain-Romney type Republican. I believe in engaging on the world stage. But if you're truly an America First Republican, which like Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about on her show, where you don't really care about foreign entanglements, you think we need to do less abroad and focus here at home, that's Trump's core base. They're watching this and they're like, why does it feel like he cares more about the Saudis than he does about our farmers right now, or about the people in my community who just can't make ends meet? So I think it's really weird optics. And I don't know how I'm surprised by how disconnected he is in this moment when he's the most unpopular he's ever been.
When you were in the White House, is that the kind of thing that he would have responded to? The idea that would you have been able to get that messaging to him?
So Carly, my producer Carly and I talked about this before, and I'm glad you brought that up. Didn't get to say it on air. So one of the core jobs of advisors around him in the first term was to brief him on what was happening in the press, the questions he would likely get. I very often was a person before he would do a press conference or do a foreign head of state meeting, be like, this is what you should anticipate is going to come up. And in that job, you have to be the bearer of bad news, and you're often the recipient of Donald Trump's wrath. If you prep him and say, by the way, you're probably going to be asked about hosting him in light of the savage murder of Jamal Khashoggi, how do you respond to that? He's going to kind of deflect or direct his anger at you. That's the job. That's what you signed up for. That's what you do. I'm not convinced that there's people doing that with him beforehand in this second administration. And I think that's why you keep seeing what feel like reactions to the first time he's hearing something in press gaggles, like the snapping at Catherine Lucy on the plane where he called her a name and was like very rude to her. It's like it felt like he wasn't even ready for that. And it's not like he's ever been respectful of the press, but there feels like there's this, he's getting, whether it's bad economic news or something, like the first time he might be hearing it often is from reporters.
Well, this is interesting because it goes to, again, to what Mary Bruce did yesterday, to something I think that you, the host of The View, do all the time. And it's one of the hardest things in the world to do, and that is speak truth to power. It is very difficult to do. I mean, you guys, you sit down with the President of the United States, you sit down with people running for office, or even just talking to camera and saying these things. And it's something that journalists do every single day when they do it well, and something that advisors need to do. And if there's nobody there who's brave to have those conversations, you know what? And that crosses party lines. It's the same conversation about whether Joe Biden should have been running again and things like that. People need to have those uncomfortable conversations, like I have with Joy Behar every morning. It's someone has to. Joy, you got to come to the meeting, Joy. Yeah. You got to come in. But it's a hard thing to do, and it's
and what also is part of it in like briefing a president or a vice president. I have a lot more experience doing this with Pence than the short period I worked for Trump, but I did have it with Trump where it's also giving him information. Oftentimes, like a president, any of them, their day is filled with things, and you have a limited amount of time to give them accurate information. I remember like during COVID briefings where he would rattle off what his answer was going to be. I'd be like, well, no, that's not accurate. So here are the facts and figures. You have to do that. That's your job. It's not your job to avoid getting yelled at. It's not your job to be afraid of being fired.
No.
You don't sign up for a job of that level for longevity and job security.
You can't hold your breath and hope he doesn't say the thing he just said to you.
Correct. Yeah. And by the way, even if you brief him well, he's still going to say something that he wasn't supposed to. Mike Pence, I'll give him credit.
Sounds a lot like my job. I just want to point that out.
You could be a great White House press secretary. Mike Pence, I thought, was excellent at, honestly, every boss in politics, with the exception of Donald Trump that I had, was very good at retaining information in prep and sticking to it. And I always saw it as a sign of respect for the facts and the policies they were defending. It's not about like, oh, well, I don't want to, like, I want to avoid a bad headline. It's make sure you have the accurate information because you owe that to the public. Speaking
of headlines, a few days ago, we had a discussion about Michelle Obama on the show. And about her saying that America wasn't ready for a female president. And your comments elicited an audible gasp from the audience. And people wrote up about it afterwards. You fired back a little bit, which was out of character. Were you surprised by the reaction?
A couple things.
Yes.
Every audience is different. So you also have sometimes more engaged audience than not.
Yeah.
And while I was a little annoyed by the gasp at the moment because I was mid-sentence, you would have to let me finish the other point to understand what I
Yeah.
was fully trying to say. I will always take a super engaged audience, even if it's negative toward
Absolutely.
me, than like a dead one. Like it's rare, but occasionally you'll get them, and
So
it's like
what you said were that Hillary Clinton,
so my point, because and keep in mind, oftentimes I'm listening to conversations at this table, and for me, it's like, oh wow, I'm learning that this is how a lot of the country sees things.
Right. You have a different viewpoint.
I'm stunned that Joy Behar thinks the fact that Hillary Clinton lost is like the math does not math for her. And growing up on the other side of the country and the other perspective, I just have a very different one. I think the world of Hillary Clinton. I hold her in high esteem. I think she is brilliant. I think she's one of the most accomplished and qualified people to run for president. I also operate in the reality I do where there were decades of attacks on her, of the Clinton name being associated with many things. There was an anti-establishment, anti-dynasty sentiment. And for the love of God, she didn't go to Michigan. Like her losing is not an indictment of the ability of a woman to be elected in this country, in my opinion. And I would actually say she was in many ways a much, much stronger and more formidable candidate than Kamala Harris got the chance to be. Kamala Harris had 100 days. She has a strong resume. She'd been Attorney General of California, sitting U.S. Senator, a vice president. But I think that she has a weakness she will have to overcome, which is she's not a direct communicator. We live in a soundbite era. We live in like the podcaster sphere where you have to be able to just make your point and get there and connect with people. It's not always about credentials. I would argue that in many elections, we didn't go with the person who was the most qualified. And I could say this, I'm going to make a new headline. Barack Obama, groundbreaking, amazing president. I can't say enough good things about the skill set of who Barack Obama was, how great of a candidate. John McCain, you could definitely argue, was more qualified. He'd had decades more in the Senate. He'd had military service and so on. Qualifications is not the only barometer to being a great politician or a great American president.
It's interesting. You know, we had Sunny and Joy on the podcast yesterday, and we revisited that conversation.
Joy made some headlines.
I was going to say she did. She and I think I let her there a little bit.
I saw the quote and thought it was me, and then I realized it was Joy.
Yeah, and I was curious about your opinion on it. The question was, Joy implied that she thought it's more likely that we'd see a conservative female president first. Do you agree with that?
I think it's very possible. I've thought that for a while. I'm still wrestling with where I think the Republican Party comes after the Trump era, but I feel like with a lot of these cracks as you're seeing them and with his approval ratings hovering in the 30s, I don't know that the conversation we're going to be having ahead of 2028 is who is the heir apparent to Donald Trump? Who is our next Donald Trump? In fact, I'm not convinced that the endorsement of Donald Trump is going to be as sought after by the next Republican candidate as we maybe would have thought of even just a year ago, if things continue the way they are. So that's where I think it opens lanes for a lot of different candidates. And I do think a credible, qualified female candidate could absolutely be elected as a Republican. I think I am confident I will see that in my lifetime. But I also think Dems may very well elect a woman.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I wonder if they'll be reluctant to nominate one now. I hope not.
See, well, that's a whole different thing. I don't know how much I buy this, like, Democrats are going to elect and nominate a white male to avoid, like, all
perceived
of the concerns
racism.
they have. Yeah, I don't think so. I think that would be out of step with their base and party. And I think that I think that's one of the bigger knocks among Democrats on Newsom.
Yeah.
And I could see them gravitating toward a Wes Moore or someone else.
All right. I want to ask you about this story. Oliver Hudson did an interview recently where he said that he had a strict no husbands policy at his wedding. Okay. Basically, his wife was trying to invite all of her college and childhood girlfriends, but he didn't know their husbands. And he said that he didn't want to spend his wedding day being introduced to new people. Okay. He wanted to know everyone there on a personal level. What do you think about this? Wasn't that long ago you got married?
I agree with the sentiment. I do get wanting to truly know and have a friendship with everyone at your wedding. There were definitely people we invited who, they weren't spouses, but close friends who had a girlfriend, and we were like, fine, you can get a +1. And now they've been broken up and I'm never going to see that person again.
They're in all the pictures.
Yeah, and they're like in pictures. And I think that I look back and I'm like, we didn't have to. Spouses I see differently. If those female friends matter enough to her to be at her wedding, I would presume that their life partners will also eventually be in your life and you'll get to know them over time. So I would be a little more open to that. But yeah, no, there are people in my wedding that I'm like, I can't remember her name. All of us knew that wasn't going to last, but like, God bless her. I hope she had a nice night.
So when I was single, I enjoyed having the opportunity to bring a date to a wedding because it's just a fun night. Yeah, it's a good, it's a pretty good thing to have. And I definitely have, I had friends. I have a friend who still works with us here actually from a long time ago that, did not give me a +1 for my wedding. I still bring it up from time to time. I think I had a great time. It was a great wedding, but I would have liked to have had a date for it.
But to be honest, this is one of my toxic traits. I don't think I went to very many weddings. I don't know if I went to any where I didn't have a +1.
Right.
I think I would generally just send a gift. Close friends.
Oh, so you wouldn't even show up if you didn't get the +1.
I don't thrive in that environment. I don't like showing up to an event alone. I don't like. I'm still like a little codependent that like I want someone. I need a buddy.
I've been to a wedding when you were single.
Yeah, I literally texted you and Sarah, and I'm like, "Are we all going together?"
Yes, and then you ghosted us about an hour in.
Yeah, then I Irish exited an hour in. Yeah,
great wedding.
That's my MO. It was a great wedding.
Yes. A lot of people have a no kids policy at their weddings. How do you feel about that?
I did too.
Oh, you did? All right.
Well, okay, with a caveat. My little niece was our flower girl, but she was 2.5 years old.
Sure.
So then she goes off to bed. My nephew, who at the time was 15, was the youngest person there, but he's a very mature 15, so I didn't think of him as a kid. Oh no, and actually, Justin's niece, Peyton, was there, and she would have been about probably 14. So I'd say, but that doesn't. Right. It depends on I don't count that as a kid. But
Did
I wouldn't
try to bring a kid, and you had to tell them no?
No, luckily, all of our friends, their kids are so little that they just wanted the excuse to get away from them, I think. And with family, I think it would have been like, they can come to the service, but the party is like for adults only.
All right, I think that's fair. I mean, kids can bring down a party, as you'll find out soon enough.
I know.
3 months to go.
Yeah. To the day.
To the day.
He arrives, well, I mean, if all goes according to plan, 3 months to the day, Binky will be arriving.
Oh my gosh, exciting times.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for joining me today.
Yes.
Just a little programming note, Behind a Table will be on break next week for Thanksgiving. I don't know how you guys are going to get through this, but try. But we will be live on The View next week, so join us for that. Tomorrow on Behind the Table, I'm back with Sarah, and we just may dive into that whole mentalist, PIN number, swearing on live TV situation, because there's a lot to unpack there. We'll see you then.